I'm a 36-year-old woman, and I grew up in what most people would call a comfortable middle-class family. My younger brother Ryan is 34. We didn't have a picture-perfect childhood, but we never went hungry, and our parents were always careful with money. Or so I thought, until I was old enough to notice how that money seemed to flow more in one direction. When Ryan finished high school, my parents paid for his entire college education. No loans or part-time jobs required. They covered his rent, helped with his wedding, and even handed him a generous down payment for his first house. For me, there were no such offers. I worked 2 jobs all through school, juggled classes and late-night shifts, and saved every extra dollar until I could afford my own small place. My parents congratulated me when I signed the mortgage, but it was the kind of applause people give when they've been watching from the sidelines. I never said anything. Not when Ryan's degree was paid off while I was still sending in checks to my student loan company. Not when they bought him a new car after his old one broke down. Not when I was patching up my own secondhand car with duct tape on the bumper. I told myself it wasn't worth making a fuss over. Their money, their choice. Things didn't change when we became parents ourselves. Ryan and his wife had 2 boys, now 8 and 10, and my daughter Sophie came along a year after the youngest. Sophie's dad, my husband, passed away when she was still little, and she's grown up close to his side of the family. She's a quiet, artistic kid, happiest with a sketchbook in her lap. From the start, it was obvious my parents were all in on being grandparents, just not equally. Ryan's boys got elaborate birthday parties with rented bounce houses, balloon arches, and full dessert tables, private school tuition, sports team fees, high-end sneakers, gaming consoles. My parents were right there to cover it all. For Sophie, there'd be a modest gift on her birthday, maybe a sweater or a set of pencils. She always smiled and said thank you, but I noticed the way she'd glance at the mountain of presents her cousins were unwrapping every Christmas. The travel thing was the hardest to ignore. My parents took Ryan's family to Hawaii, to Europe, to Disney more than once. They'd come back with photos of castles and beaches, smiling with Mickey Mouse. Sophie and I would get a fridge magnet from the trip. Whenever I asked why we weren't invited, the answer was always some variation of, oh, Sophie probably wouldn't enjoy that, or she's too shy for big group trips. It kept going like this for years. I kept my head down, tried to focus on raising Sophie the best I could. I didn't want to turn her into someone who expected things to be handed to her, but I also couldn't ignore the growing gap between how my parents treated her and her cousins. The breaking point came at a family dinner one evening. We were sitting at the table, me, Sophie, my parents, Ryan, and his family, when my dad casually announced that they'd set up college funds for both of Ryan's boys. We wanted to make sure they're taken care of for the future, he said, like it was just another piece of news. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, we didn't set one up for Sophie since Emily is financially independent. The table stayed quiet for a moment. Sophie looked down at her plate and blinked fast, like she was trying not to cry. I reached for her hand under the table. Ryan broke the silence with a grin, saying something about how I was lucky to have a stable job, and how it must be nice not to need the extra help. I didn't argue. There was nothing to say that wouldn't make the air in that room heavier than it already was. But that night, as I was driving Sophie home, I kept replaying the moment in my head. I couldn't give her what my parents had given Ryan's family in terms of money, and maybe I never would. But there had to be something I could give her that would mean just as much, if not more. I started to think about what couldn't be measured in dollar signs. Experiences, memories,